extraordinary extreme positions at the moment. So what's the sense you're picking up as far as the reaction from India is going to be? I mean, this is something that's going to be a little worrying for the Indian establishment.
Well, it was quite expected that the tariffs would be raised to about 50% because some experts have even suggested that the tariffs could go up to as much as 200% because he had spoken about pharmaceuticals separately as well and said that the tariffs could be as much as 250%. But right now he's gone on to 50%. That was also quite expected. As Disha was also mentioning that he has been on a tirade of, exerting this pressure on India, this new pressure that was not seen in the last 3 to 4 decades. And this was quite surprising that whatever stance Trump has taken in the last 48 hours has created ripples across foreign policy that India has built over the years. So what will be the repercussions? What way India reacts now? That is interesting to be seen because India has been clamping down hard on whatever Trump has been saying. Many disinformation, misinformation has been shared by the Trump administration from Trump himself. And India has, taken that opportunity to expose him on the international stage and say that whatever Trump has said is not right. The mean tariff that India exposes on almost more than 50% of the products that come into Indian territory that just stands at 4.6%. That's way below whatever the advanced economies exert on imports when they go into their country. So that way, India has been able to expose Trump, and also many global South nations such as Brazil have also extended their helping hand, the supporting hand. Lula, the president of Brazil, has just commented that he will not be speaking to Trump when it comes to tariffs. Whether or not India also takes the same stance, that remains to be seen because Lula has been known to take on Trump for a long time now.
That's a very important point Vishal is talking about.
I think this will also be a test of Prime Minister's diplomacy in terms of the optics and the language that the Prime Minister and India would use in response to this. This was possibly perhaps a big test for the Prime Minister's diplomacy.
In fact, 15th of August, the Independence Day, was when a lot of my sources were also saying that the Prime Minister could be talking about it. Disha, 2 important points here. One, what are the diplomatic options that India has now, something that both Veera and Vishal talked about? And the second, what are the sectors that need to worry about or watch out for? We know about gems and jewelry, pharma and textiles, but which are the sectors that are likely to get affected?
Right. So firstly, talking about India's diplomatic options now. One option that I already mentioned was, of course, retaliatory action, especially at the WTO, challenging these Trump tariffs as illegal, which is something that New Delhi has been exploring. Apart from that, of course, retaliatory tariffs on US goods, which could again have a massive impact on the US economy. But apart from that, look, both officials from both sides, US and India, continue to have these negotiations. The talks are still ongoing. A US trade team is also expected to arrive in India later this month on the 25th of August. So that is still, the talks are still ongoing. So there is a possibility that using the shared strategic interests of both Washington and New Delhi, emphasizing on that, India perhaps could push Washington to reach some sort of trade deal that's mutually beneficial. But that is right now seems a little unlikely because clearly President Trump is on this tirade of imposing tariffs, pressurizing, weaponizing these tariffs to push India to reach some sort of trade deal. But apart from that, another crucial diplomatic move that India can also make is diversifying its oil supply and its oil resources. Because right now, before the Ukraine war, in fact, India did not import as much Russian oil. But now, since the war, India was importing this Russian oil, but they're also looking at Gulf states. Prime Minister Modi visited various Gulf states last year. So this is another important aspect that India can diversify its oil suppliers to get out of this US-Russia competition that India has somehow become a part of.
About the upcoming SEO summit and Trump tariffs, the larger context to this, how is India going to navigate this diplomatically? I know the parliament session is on and tomorrow there are going to be many questions that are going to be asked of the government, but with the SEO summit coming up, Prime Minister all set to travel to China, how do you see the geopolitical context?
Even China, in fact, has called out US President Trump's abuse of tariffs. That's the word they use, abuse of tariffs, repeatedly. And even a couple of days ago, on the 1st of August, just a day after US President threatened India with the 25% tariffs, China said that we will not tolerate this abuse of tariffs, and this is not just harmful to rivals, but overall to the global economic system. So China also, as part of the BRICS bloc, is very much against the Trump tariffs and sees this as abuse. So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be a bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Chinese president.
Sure, just give me a second, because we've got Shiv Arur as well joining us here live, who's been tracking this very closely. Shiv, in multiple ways, it's also going to be a test of the tone that India has used so far. Let's not miss the fact that the National Security Advisor being in Moscow is not a diplomatic message at this stage that was going on. So perhaps India taking that calculated chances.
Veera and Vasudha, India has been extremely sober, very calm, very measured so far. But I think Trump has made it very clear that by putting his threats into action and announcing this doubling of the tariffs from 25% to 50%, we can at least be reasonably clear now, that's not just shadow play, it's not just smoke and mirrors. There's definitely negotiations going on, there's a lot of hardball being played, but this is a president of the United States who doesn't seem to want to back off. He cares two hoots for whether there's going to be pushback or not. But what we've seen over the last 48 hours, I think, is an India that has not only stood its ground, but stood firm and actually begun a kind of Plan B counterattack. You've got the External Affairs Ministry putting out an unusually, strident message to Trump, where they've actually called out American hypocrisy in the importing of Russian equipment. I have a feeling, Veera and Vasudha, that may have been sort of poking a bear a little bit, diplomatically speaking, but it's a chance that the Indian system appears to have taken, considering that the public mood right now is one of being frankly kind of cheesed off with the way Trump has disrespected and shown open diplomatic contempt for India. I think Indians and the Indian system.
Aspect of it, the fact that this is a punishment for buying Russian oil. We have talked about how the duplicity of it. How do you look at India navigating this diplomatically, because Russia has been a tried and tested friend?
Like Veera said, Vasudha, the fact that National Security Advisor Ajit Doval happens to be in Moscow right now, of course it was a scheduled visit, but the messaging is unmissable, right?
Yeah.
And, where is someone like a Trump going to understand the nuances of context? Are we really going to have an MEA guy say, don't worry, Mr. Trump, this was a pre-scheduled visit, etc. At a time like this, when India is front and center and clearly on Trump's table, given that he's issuing these threats and ultimatums practically on a daily basis, the one thing we can be very clear about is that this is a politician who is putting his money where his mouth is, clearly, quite literally. And I think your question is the most important one. How do we navigate this? So far, India has shown that it is going to be calm, it's going to be measured, no knee-jerk reactions, no histrionics to match Trump, because we will never be able to win in that particular arena. But a sort of calibrated pushback is clearly underway. I happened to meet some senior officials from the External Affairs Ministry yesterday at the Rashtrapati Bhavan as well, when the Philippines president was being felicitated. And I can tell you that it's action stations on the in the Indian system. There are sleepless nights in the government right now. Nobody knows for sure what Trump's next move is going to be. There appears to be a clear case of wanting to separate Trump from the American system, but it's becoming increasingly difficult, right?
Right.
That's right. Shiv, a couple of former diplomats that I was speaking to, a couple of days back say this is also like a game of bluff. Yeah. Who's going to call whose bluff? Because they believe that in the long run, neither country can afford to break away that business strategic relationship, which is extraordinarily close. So I think India also pretty much trying to send out, Shiv, correct me if I'm wrong, a message with this, that it's not a diplomatic pushover. It's willing to take what it has to in terms of standing its ground on certain issues, which is specifically like Russian oil.
Calibration is really the name of the game here. I couldn't agree with you more, Veera, when you say that, this is a long-standing, very powerful relationship. presidents come and go, but the India-US relationship is sustained in many ways actually worse than this. It's only that Trump sort of articulates and gives words to what even previous presidents have actually done as far as the India-US relationship is concerned. But having said that, I think the India-Russia relationship is an extremely important one. India is not going to wager or negotiate on that even for a moment. I think India understands where it currently stands on this shape-shifting chessboard. You've got Prime Minister Modi, Veera and Vasudha, the story that we broke earlier today. We can categorically confirm he's flying off to China at the end of this month for the SCO summit. So all of these things are going to be read as messages. And India understands that while the India-US relationship has proven to be extremely resilient in the past as well, we've seen problems with Biden. Boy, have we seen problems with Bush and Obama as well. But here is a president who, who, like I said, gives shape and optics to what most people consider to be existing deep state policy in the United States. So how we're going to navigate it? Are we going to sort of up the temperature back at Trump? Like Veera correctly said, is it going to be a game of brinkmanship? Who's going to blink first? I'm going to call out your bluff. Hopefully at the end of all of it, there will be a meeting ground somewhere where suddenly there is this, the sun rises from the clouds and suddenly you have this loving, affectionate message from Trump. I think that's something that could actually happen.
Shiv, I was talking to a senior minister and he said that na Trump ban sakte hain, na unko hum bol sakte hain, we will watch out for our own interests. That's what he said. But Shiv, there's a question on everybody's mind. Why is this happening now? Because we just saw the Prime Minister also talk about how no international global leader has played a part in the ceasefire. We also saw the trade deal not working out because India stood its ground, when it came to agricultural products, something that was very crucial for Trump working this out. Why do you think this is happening?
Look, that's a tough one, right, Vasudha? Multiple aspects. I'm sorry, we seem to have lost the line with Shiv at the moment, right, Vasudha?
Yeah.
I think multiple aspects at play. Let's not forget that there's been, as Shiv was pointing out, and I was just tempted to add that we've also seen the Nixon-Kissinger era back in the 70s. So India-US has gone through much more, but the people-to-people ties, there's business strategic interests, and I think just the sheer volume of scale of business investments here and the ties on the other side, the strategic interests, may be too difficult to overlook, but it's as somebody pointed out, and presidents come and presidents go. But at the moment, we may have to brace ourselves for a lot of turbulence in the coming days. Why it's happening? Multiple points as you make out, national security issues, Operation Sindoor, then Trump's questions. One doesn't want to link to do to the other.
Okay, let's bring in Shiv again. Shiv, over to you now.
Thanks very much, Veera and Vasudha. We're continuing our coverage right now, and our breaking coverage on Trump doubling the tariffs on India is a big breaking story. NDTV, of course, broke it first, and the repercussions, the impact, the fallout is something that we're going to be decoding right through prime time here. It is by far the biggest story with the biggest ramifications for us all over this country. Welcoming onto our coverage, Asha Jadeja Motwani. She's a well-known Indian-American venture capitalist and philanthropist. Asha, welcome. Good to see you. We did see your tweet a few hours ago, Asha, where you said, Prime Minister Modi needs to pick up the phone in good faith, speak to Trump, diffuse this situation, and put an end to this suspense between India and the US, which is very damaging for relations, even though it's between Trump and India at this point of time. Just before you joined us, Trump and the White House have announced a doubling of those tariffs. Asha, what do you make of that?
Well, this is shocking, and this escalation must not be allowed to happen. The ball is in India's court right now. Remember, India is an extremely important strategic partner for the United States. And I'm not sure exactly what's happening with Trump and in the White House right now, but they're trying to play sort of brinkmanship right now and trying to get India to say yes to buying more energy from the US and buying more weapons from the US. I think what India needs to, first thing we need to do is make sure that that the Prime Minister picks up the phone, talks to Trump and says that we should continue these negotiations, number one. Number two, Second thing is that we need to make sure that we communicate to the president that India is the only country that has a foot in the door with Russia of our size and of our relationship. That has a foot in the door with a relationship with Russia, so that we can be the peacemaker. We are the main peacemaker between Russia and Ukraine right now. We are the most important peace builder. So this is another point that needs to be communicated. Third thing that needs to be communicated by the Prime Minister is that we are stabilizing the oil markets right now by consuming so much of Russian oil, crude oil, which has been hugely approved by the Biden administration. We are stabilizing the markets, and we are providing what the US wants us to do, which is not let Russians provide oil directly to the Europeans, and instead we are the ones providing. That's what the Biden administration also wanted. That's exactly what the US wants. It's in its strategic interest. So these are few points that we need to communicate to the team. But most important thing right now is for us to set aside our ego, knowing that we are extremely important to the United States, and make sure that we reassure Trump that the US is very important to us and that we will do what it takes in buying more energy, number one. And number two, buying more weapon systems, slowly but surely. And number three, that our businesses, our massive business houses, will invest in the US. We will create more jobs in the US. Itna bolne mein kuch hoga nahi. There is no communication, there is no commitment.
Asha ji, I take your point. I know what you're saying is in good faith, but I am just wondering, where is the question of ego in all of this? Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump share a very good personal equation. None of the things that you have said are unknown to Trump and his advisors. They know very well, why India needs to buy Russian oil. They know all these reasons. All these explanations are very well known to them. This is something else. There is something else going on. This is about the deal,
there
obviously.
Is one more thing.
India has bought $30 billion worth of defense equipment, ma'am. It's, what are we missing here?
No, there is. So here's what. This is more conspiracy theory kind of a thing that it has been lurking in my mind. The reason Pakistan has so much leverage in the US right now is because it's piggybacking on the massive Qatari lobby networks in Washington, D.C. It is an old friendship between Qatar and Pakistan. It's a very powerful Sunni network, and they are going to work on it. They are going to, Qatar is going to support Pakistan against India at any cost. This is my guess right now. Once again, it's a conspiratorial kind of a theory that I have, but I think that the Qataris have put pressure on the Trump team to make sure that we denounce India. But that's my guess. I don't have any proof of that. But my thing right now is that US is too important for India, and India is too important for US, for the Indian leadership to let this play out on its own. We need to be more proactive.
Asha ji, but the question I'm asking is, is it something substantial that Trump expects, or is he looking for a gesture? From your tweet, it looks like he wants someone to come and kiss his ring, give him a gesture that makes him feel good, some kind of an ego massage, Nobel Peace Prize. ऐसा कुछ चाहिए क्या उनको?
Shiv, this is all that is. It is just gesture. Trump is very easy to work on. Play the game correctly, kiss his ring if we have to, but make sure that we tell Trump that, first of all, what's the harm in thanking him for saying, hey, thank you for making so many phone calls during the Operation Sindoor. At least thank you, right? If nothing else. And what's the harm in saying that, number one? Number two, yes, he wants everybody to come and kiss his ring. I mean, Trump is known to be, egomaniac, and that's okay. I mean, just tell him that we are going to work on it and get this going, because we are too important. India is too important to the US right now for this relationship. And US cannot afford to push us into the arms of China right now. So please, just make sure that you speak to the right people in the White House, Shiv. You should not be speaking to, people like Subhash Garg and all these people, Indian IAS officers who were fired by Nirmala Sitharaman. Why are they giving gyan on this whole thing? We should not be pushed into the arms of China.
This is very interesting. This is actually perhaps the most interesting thing I've heard in the last 72 hours, which is that, it is not a substantive move or some big concession that Trump is looking for. He's looking for a kiss on his ring, some kind of ego massage, a thank you, a recommendation for the Nobel Peace Prize, which may be actually a little bit more difficult than actual trade concessions. But welcoming Smita Prakash, editor ANI, Yashvardhan Sinha, former ambassador to the United Kingdom, as well as Professor Andrew Latham, author and professor of political science at Macalester College, York University in the United States. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us. Smita, very quickly to you. How are you reading this? Trump at least putting his money where his mouth is as far as that 24-hour deadline is concerned, and pushing very hard. He said 24 hours ke baad, if you guys have not stopped buying Russian oil or at least reduced it, your tariffs are going to be doubled. What do you think, Smita?
Yeah, well, so since this morning, one has been hearing all kinds, like from 25% to 100%. So it was, I think the fine print and the details still have to be deciphered. We have a couple of days for making the conversations, taking the conversations further. I don't think it's a shutdown completely. But the way he's saying it, it seems to be that he's like setting the pitch for his batsmen before a resumption of trade talks, if there are, and maybe modify this order if there is no retaliation from our side. Of course, we won't fold in like say the Indonesians did or whatever, but he knows that these are tough negotiations and he is holding out a carrot and stick approach. It's probably his way of doing business. I think both Modi and Trump, they're both economic nationalists. I don't think we should see this as simply an ego thing, or it's like we need to kiss his ring and it's a Nobel Prize. I think things go beyond this. There are delegations working on this, and that's not been their takeaway. And with US now, one has to be pragmatic enough to understand that we have entered this realm of being a transactional relationship with them. The sooner we realize it, it is better. We should just wipe the slate clean of legacy issues. Those legacy paths, I think, Shiv, are now shut forever. At least I don't see that reopening. And that's how other countries are also doing. Protracted negotiations to reach their deals. EU has forgotten its historical past. Japan has forgotten its historical past with the US. And very stoically, they have gone ahead. That, or else we just tighten the belts and weather the storm, whether it is 25% today and another 75% henceforth. Now, tariffs are negative growth stories. Our GDP is going to get hurt. That will not be good for the India story, a story that Mr. Modi has to take back to his people again and again, because, we have continuous elections in this country. So he has to take back the India story again and again. And Indian negotiators will have to swallow the humility pill, unfortunately, because that's how it is. I mean, US tariffs on Chinese imports fell, right? After, I think, 140 or 145% or something like that, it fell down to 35% after negotiations. And China did have negotiations, fine. They are a larger economy. They can push back more. We are strong too, but we are not China, and we are not the Europe. We are not Japan. Still, we are holding on. So penalties will be there. We'll have to take the hit. The government has talked, just the government now, it is necessary for the BJP as a party and the government to talk to the people in this country and tell them that we have to do this, we have to talk. There's no need to get hurt by taunts that come in from the opposition that, oh my God, the Modi-Trump bond has taken a hit and it's all lose from here. No, I don't think we should go that path.
Very interesting. So it's not just about a kiss on the ring. It's much more substantive than that. Perhaps gestures are part of it, icing on the cake, if you will. But there is going to have to be some concession, some middle ground, removing legacy issues and maybe hitting reboot as far as ties between the two countries are concerned. That's what the opportunity is here. Ambassador Sinha, how are you reading this? What should India do next?
Shiv, thank you for having me. At the outset, I think we should not press any panic buttons. We should handle this maturely.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I respectfully disagree with Ms. Motwani. We are too big a country of 1.4 billion people. We are the fourth largest economy in the world, heading towards being the third largest, we don't kiss rings. And as far as massaging egos are concerned, I remember the Howdy Modi event at Houston. I remember in Ahmedabad, the Modi Stadium, the sort of welcome that President Trump got. I don't think he would have got that sort of welcome anywhere else in the world. So I think what we must understand that this is a very strong relationship. I mean, the trade in goods and services are now almost $200 billion. American companies have invested about $60 billion into India, and Indian companies have invested around $40 billion into the US.
Yeah.
The US is our largest trading partner, and we are the US's 12th largest trading partner. But the relationship is based on give and take. It's based on mutual respect. We cannot be slighted and insulted like this. And I understand President Trump, that's his style, and that is how he likes to negotiate, and we are prepared to negotiate. We've had 5 rounds of negotiations already. And in fact, a framework had been agreed to, but that has been torpedoed. Now we hope that the next round, which will take place on the 25th of August, I believe, will produce results. I mean, look at the way we are being tariffed out. I mean, we are supposed to be a strategic partner. In fact, if I remember, one of his predecessors described the India-US relationship as the defining partnership of the 21st century.
Exactly.
Where has all that gone? In one stroke of a pen or a tweet or a whatever, 30 years of hard work, assiduously built upon by people on both sides, is crumbling. And mind you, Shiv, this is going to have a lasting impact. It's not, we might reach a deal, I'm sure, and I hope that we reach a deal. But, buying defense equipment, forget it. What sort of defense equipment? F-35s from an unreliable partner? I'm afraid, I think we will think twice before going in for anything.
I'm wondering exactly the same thing.
This is the problem. I mean, we really need to analyze and see where we went wrong. I'm sure we went wrong too somewhere.
I'm going to come to that bit in just a moment. That we all hope that there's a deal in sight. After all this drama, hopefully there is a deal that's going to actually be struck between the two countries and the relationship can proceed. But what about the scars of the things that have been said? I think that is something that needs to be addressed as well. Welcoming Willem Buiter, American-British economist, also onto our coverage. But Professor Latham, to you first, how do you see what's just happened? The second tariff bomb, as we're calling it, has been dropped as promised by Trump. What do you think is going to happen next? How do you see India responding now?
Well, I think it'd be wise for India, if I can speak for Indians, not to overreact, not to react very much at all, just to plow ahead and do what they've been doing, because this too shall pass. Trump is having a little bit of a temper tantrum. He beat up Japan, he beat up Indonesia, he beat up the EU, he got what he wanted. He's beating up Canada and Mexico, he's going to get what he wanted there. And he's frustrated because India won't roll over and play dead. And there are good reasons for that, which have less to do with Indian national pride. Canadians have national pride, Japanese have national pride. It has to do with electoral dynamics in India. The BJP can't roll over on this and sacrifice the agricultural sector and the pharmaceutical and so on and expect to be reelected anywhere in the near future. If I were to take a 30,000-foot perspective on this very, very quickly, I would say 3 things. One of which is that Trump is damaging the geoeconomic relationship here. The rules-based international order, if not dead, is on its deathbed. And Trump has figured this out, and he's partly engineered it, and now he's looking to do as many bilateral trade deals as possible. With everybody from Canada to Japan and out to India, it's no longer a world order, as it were. It's a bunch of bilateral relationships. That is not going to work in the long run. Geopolitically, India and the United States have to be aligned in the Indo-Pacific because of the China. There are lots of forces pushing them together in that respect. And I think, therefore, that this is a bit of a storm that will pass because the interests are simply too deep and they're too aligned. And finally, something which very few people know about, either in or beyond the U.S., is that Trump is alienating the largest and most powerful diaspora in the United States, which is They naturally, historically, have gravitated towards the Democratic Party. They started to move towards the Republican Party during Trump 1.0. And I think he's going to decelerate that movement, if not reverse that movement. And that's going to have domestic electoral implications as the Indian diaspora, which, as I said, is the most wealthy and powerful diaspora in the United States.
I think Asha Jadeja Motwani was speaking a little bit from that perspective as well, and I'll come back to her and all my guests in just a moment. Vishnu Shom joins us live from Israel. He's been reporting from there. I've asked him to plug in just a moment, but before I go back to all of you, what does this mean for India? 50% tariffs, 25% more than what it was earlier. I just wanted to quickly break it down so there's context for all of our viewers. Higher cost. Obviously, it stands at 50% tariffs right now. It's a setback as far as steel, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals are concerned. The India-US trade imbalance obviously will be widened quite dramatically. Now, take a look at the high tariff charts that hits all these countries. India stands at 50%, Brazil at 50%, China is at 30%, interestingly, Canada at 35%, Switzerland at 39%, and Iraq at 35%. So that's where things stand right now. 50% is where it's at as far as India is concerned, and we've just named all those sectors which will be impacted. We'll have to see whether there's going to be any follow-up announcement from the White House on this. But Willem Buiter, your opening comment on this: India shouldn't overreact. So far, it has signaled that it is no pushover. It's not going to have any knee-jerk reactions to these announcements, but it looks like Trump is only escalating further and further. What do you think?
Yes, this 50% hike is not unexpected, but it is very punitive. But it's not the end of the story. Negotiations will go on and must go on. But I also believe that at the moment, while India is the fastest growing economy in the world and could well in 10 years be the second largest economy in the world, at the moment, it's a minor trade partner for the US. 2.7% of US exports go to India, 2.7% US imports. So there's very little trading bargaining power. The bargaining power is geopolitical, right? And I think there will have to be concessions by China, inevitably. Russian oil is not something that is simply Trump bluffing. This is a real issue for all of the West. And of course, Indian tariffs are among the highest in the world. And a selective reduction in tariffs, politically not too sensitive in India, seems to be an inevitable part of the reconciliation story.
Smita, is Russian oil, India's purchase of Russian oil, according to you, your understanding with the people you've spoken to, is that a negotiable right now? So far, India has signaled that, our energy security interests are, nobody can touch that or dictate on that. What is your sense? Is that something that, India could dial down?
No, so this is where I think most of the objection of America is. They will, as far as the other issues are concerned, they will negotiate with us. But on the point of Russian oil, I think it is no go for both of them.
Yeah.
This is where it is getting stuck in everything. But to take off from where Yash Sinha had said that, look, we are a mature republic. We understand that it's a dynamic situation. We will have to bring in some kind of engage diplomatically, use our heft with our other partners, say in the Quad, in G20, in the UN, partners who Trump listens to. I won't say America listens to, I'll just say Trump listens to, because here it seems like we have negotiators in the Republican administration. We've had very good ties with the Republican Party, as we did with the Democrats. But here it seems that it's just Trump that one has to deal with. So we have to figure out pathways where we can talk. And the thing is that it's what should I say, things do sour up between two nations. There are times when these become partnerships. There are no permanent friends. There are no perpetual enemies. So, it's only interests that matter. And we've maintained these special relationships in this multipolar world that we are in. The NSA is in Moscow today. You think DC doesn't know that? They are obviously watching that. They would have seen it very carefully. And it's something that we have to, and I keep reiterating that while we talk to America, while we keep with the Russian oil, we need that. We are going to keep with that. But we also need to build up domestic resilience. We need to talk politically to our own people and explain the situation. That communication is lacking too. I think there too, the government needs to be more proactive.
Very interesting. Asha Jadeja Motwani, on the important point of the all-powerful Indian diaspora in the United States. Are they, A, what do they think? And B, is there a back channel to Trump and his advisors from powerful Indians in the United States, wondering what the hell is going on?
So right now, the only back channel is me. So thank you, first of all, for bringing me on this show, because I'm a donor to the Republican. I'm a shameless donor to the Republican Party, and I'm doing this Shiv, my recommendation to all of you in the media business. Talk to people who know the White House. Talk to people who understand the White House, who have relationships in the White House, and who are meeting with Trump, who are meeting with Howard Lutnick, who have a relationship with Howard Lutnick. This is important. You guys need to speak to Ricky Gill. Bring Ricky Gill on the show, please. It's crucial that you bring Walter Russell Mead and Ricky Gill on your show. From the Indian diaspora, it's just me right now, and it's so sad because it should be many more of us who should be connected to the White House. And hopefully this is going to happen now that people understand the pressures. But remember that this is only temporary, as the professor said. This too shall pass. Right now, India is too important to the United States for any of this to drag on for too long. But we need to pick up the phone. India needs to pick up the phone and call Trump and make him feel good about himself. He's an egomaniac, unfortunately, and we need to work on that. He's easy, though. He's easy to work with by picking up the phone. We need to do that. It's urgent.
Okay, some substantive concessions, but also picking up the phone and making Trump feel good about himself, is a difficult package. But at this moment, it's seeming like a bitter pill to swallow after all the things that have been said. And I agree with Ambassador Sinha on that front as well. Vishnu Shom, our group executive editor, is live with me from Israel. Vishnu, sorry to drag you away from your frontline reporting, but I did want a perspective on this because it's an important one. You're looking at all of these things very, very closely. What are you hearing from the External Affairs Ministry and the government, Vishnu, about how India is going to react to this? What is India's next step now that this second tariff bomb is dropped?
Well, it is a tariff bomb, and if you look at India's response a couple of days back, when Donald Trump made his latest series of threats, New Delhi came up with a response within 2 hours where we blamed the West and the United States for hypocrisy, saying that the United States continues itself to import several items from Russia. The energy requirements of Europe are partially met from Russia as well. So therefore, why is it that America is now picking on India? These are double standards and this is hypocrisy. If that is the precedent which has been set by New Delhi, and with Donald Trump now acting on what he has threatened and is raising tariffs up to 50%, which matches the highest, which is Brazil, then New Delhi will actually have to look at this from a more long-term standpoint. And I think that is a matter of real concern. In as much as we might get a trade deal done, I do believe that this decision by Donald Trump might result in a significant trust deficit between Washington and New Delhi. There is too much on the table already to completely discard. Nobody is thinking about that so far. But that trust deficit is very, very significant. Why? Because India and the US have historically deeply distrusted each other. But they've developed that sense of trust after signing several foundational agreements over a period of more than 20 years, despite very sharp differences. The relationship is at an extremely critical level when it comes to defense, technology, the economy, pharma, clean energy, you name it. And now to have the US president all of a sudden put all that aside and say, sorry, India, 50% tariffs, because you are meeting your energy requirements and I have a problem with that. that is something that would hurt New Delhi deeply. So I would suspect, best case scenario, the trust between New Delhi and Washington will be eroded significantly.
Vishnu, thanks very much for that perspective. Hugely important. The trust factor is something that we haven't spoken about, and that is something that Ambassador Sinha also sort of hinted at. But the question I'd like to ask you, the second question I'd like to ask you, Ambassador Sinha, then is, what would be happening in the Indian External Affairs Ministry right now, in the government? How would they be preparing to respond? Obviously, government wargaming the possibility of 25% going to 50%, 50% going to 100% is all very much on the table. So what would a Plan B discussion look like at this time?
Shiv, I can't second guess the government because I'm well out of the government for quite some years now. So, but all I can say is that it would be a very considered response. India doesn't react in a knee-jerk fashion. It's always a very considered response, and I'm quite sanguine that that's what will happen. As I said earlier, we need to continue the path of negotiation. We'd be very happy. I completely agree with what Vishnu has said. And I did say it, I didn't use the word trust, but I did say the relationship assiduously built up is being undermined. But I think the problem is that when the deal is done, if the deal is done, what has happened now has left a very bad taste in the mouth. I'm sure if Gallup or whoever else took a poll in India right now, you would get to know exactly what the Indian people feel. And after all, we are a democracy, and our government has to reflect the opinion of the people. And I think what this has done is to almost, and I use the word almost because there are some standouts, almost unified the country behind the government on one particular issue, and that is that we will not bow to foreign pressure like this.
Smita, very quick question. There is an erosion of trust for sure. Is there a communication breakdown that you're sensing? I don't want to oversimplify it and say, we need to just pick up the phone, even though I know Asha was using a metaphor there. But is there a communication breakdown, or is there a conversation going on to try and resolve this?
Unfortunately, one has to think of this as a communication breakdown. Otherwise, it would not have resulted in this kind of a penalty of an additional 25%. But it would be myopic to think that the US president is just a petulant child and an egomaniac, and all we need to do is suck up to him. I respectfully disagree. He's a tough negotiator. He prides himself in striking deals, whether you agree with him politically or not. But the fact is that he uses the bully pulpit of being the head of the most powerful country in the world, and he has struck deals for his country with friend and foe in the rest of the world. If you're an American, you'll give credit to him. Yes, his polls have shown that he's most unpopular right now, but he cares a zilch. He doesn't care at all what the world thinks, what the polls show. The thing is that I agree we should not react in a knee-jerk manner. Yes, we don't even react in a knee-jerk manner. That's not how our foreign policy works. We move, in fact, like an elephant. It took us decades to turn 90 degrees and reduce the suspicion levels with our relationship with the US. Even today, those in this city, in New Delhi, who have been working assiduously to improve ties with the US are probably striking their foreheads and saying, oh my God, is this what it's 2 decades of hard work gone down the chute? Because there are many people who are going to say that this is what America is. But the point is, this is not what America is. This is not what America thinks. Yes, temporarily, during this process that we are negotiating trade, this is what America thinks.
What are those concessions that India can make if Russian oil is not going to be one of them? What could it possibly be? I'm actually wondering, because Professor Latham, if I could bring you back into this, and we've got some breaking news coming in that the tariffs will take effect after 21 days. So there's this very substantial window obviously coming in, which is the clearest possible indication, and we can all agree that this is very much an active negotiation that's taking place. I agree with Smita, only a communication breakdown could have resulted, in this very language of, if you don't do this in the next 24 hours, then we'll take action, etc. But this 21-day window for the tariffs to take effect clearly signals that there is an opportunity for negotiation and that negotiations, in fact, are probably happening. Professor Latham, what kind of concessions, in your view, could be on the table? India is making it clear, at least thus far, that cranking down the import of Russian oil is not up for discussion.
Well, first of all, I would say that the delay in terms of imposing the sanctions, that's Trump 101, isn't it? That's been the case since day one. This is a hard deadline, a hard deadline, a hard deadline. Oops, 21 days from now, 30 days from now, 90 days from now is the new deadline. So I'm not surprised. Secondly, what can India give? Well, it can't give Trump what he really, really, really wants, which is some concession on the oil. I mean, of course, India is going to buy cheap oil. It needs oil, and Russian oil is cheap at the moment. And I know it's hard for North Americans and Europeans to get this through their heads, but the Ukraine war is not the most important thing in the world around the world. That's really a Euro-Atlantic obsession at the moment, and it doesn't play that way in the global South. India is not going to reform its agricultural sector. Canada won't even reform its agricultural sector. I mean, there's too many jobs at stake. There's too many political constituencies that have some investment in that. There's just no way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Where I do see some possibilities is in terms of defense industrial collaboration and cooperation. We've already seen baby steps taken in that direction. India purchasing not the F-35, which is a piece of junk, but maybe investing in the F-47, the sixth generation fighter, which is under development now in the United States. Maybe simply buying more from America that's not high profile, high tech, cutting edge, next generation stuff, and building the relationship around the obvious to me, which is this geopolitical relationship, which has an economic component to it.
Yeah.
Some of it is big, buying Russian oil, but some of it is smaller, buying American military technology or American firms investing in India, like General Electric has, for example. So I see small gestures, small movements. One last thing about gestures, this is not about Trump. This is about powerful American social forces that are being channeled by Trump. Does he matter? Yes, individuals matter in human history. But you take Trump out of the equation, those forces are still at play. And they're still going to be working themselves out. And India and Canada and other countries are still going to have to work out ways to deal with that part of the American population as long as they occupy the White House.
Ambassador D.P. Srivastav is also with us. He's India's former ambassador to Iran. Here on Primetime on NDTV, we're getting as many voices as possible on this constantly breaking story. A minute ago, we just told you that Trump has announced 21 days. It's 21 days for this tariff bomb to take effect. So obviously, there's a window for negotiations. Ambassador Srivastav, what do you make of this tariff bomb? We've been talking about it for the last 20 minutes. Various views here. How do you see it? What do you think India's reaction will be or should be?
Steve, I was in Washington in early 90s, 91, when Super 301 and Special 301 sanctions were sought to be imposed on us. And we survived. So my suggestion is, of course, I'm out of the government, but I think we need to wait it out. Now, I have 3 or 4 points to make. This is not simply about oil. Europe buys gas from Russia. Russia accounts for 17% of Europe's LNG imports. So why only pick on Indian purchase of crude oil? Europe is also buying energy from Russia.
Yes.
The second point, that oil price cap, the system was devised by Americans. And the idea was to reduce Russian revenues without disturbing the global oil supply. And this is still in force. It is still part of the US law. And it is part of the EU law. The EU has now reduced the price cap from $60 to $47.5.
Yes.
Now, that arrangement was devised to allow third countries to continue buying Russian crude. Now, the third point, if there's a stop, what happens? Russia accounts for something like 5 million barrels of crude oil exports. Iran accounts for another 1.5 billion or so.
Yeah.
So you will be removing about 6.5 to 7 million barrels per day of oil from world market. At the moment, the consumption is around 105 million barrels. So roughly more than 5% of the current supply. There is no alternate source which can take care of this. There will be a huge oil price shock, and this will also affect the American consumer. Now, the fourth point is, India is not America's problem. You know, our trade, our surplus is a paltry $47 billion or something, or around that figure.
Okay.
China has a $300 billion surplus. Similarly, in case of oil, China buys double as much from Russia oil, and it also buys something like 70 BCM, billion cubic meter of gas per year from Russia. So even in energy terms, unless China falls in line, it's not going to make any difference to Russian coffers and the war effort in Ukraine. And from looking at it from our point of view, similarly, on a conciliatory note, America is not our problem, because America is a market where we have run a surplus. So there is a reason to be, conciliatory to them. And I think one way out could be, we can partly diversify. For instance, LNG imports, we buy a lot of LNG from Qatar. Now, part of that can be diversified or changed. In fact, I was on the GAIL board for 3 years, and during my term, we started buying from America.
Ambassador, just hold on to that thought. Just look at this breaking news. I'll come right back to you on this because it's related to what you're saying. This is the third update on this broadcast where Trump has basically instructed his Secretary of Commerce to identify whether other countries are directly or indirectly purchasing Russian oil, and has threatened punitive tariffs against these countries as well. Smita, the point on Russian oil being reinforced, India has pushed back, very explicitly articulated that energy security is our autonomy, it's our sovereign decision, it's our national interest. Trump here is saying, forget about India. Anybody else looking at Russian oil is going to be punished in the same way. He's digging in his heels on this point as well.
It could also be because of the question that was asked in the press conference that, hey, you yourself are doing it, fertilizer. It was asked about that you're taking Russian fertilizer. So that could be that, so if we are taking it, the other countries must be taking it too. So this is just, it goes on and on, I don't think he's just hunting now, that game which is there where those little crocodiles come up and you start hitting them all the time. It's like that. It's ridiculous. But then what to do? I mean, America's elected him and we have to deal with him for the next 3 years or at least till midterm. So let's see, we have to deal with it. There's one point that you had brought up about the diaspora, and one of the guests had said that, Indian diaspora, we could lose their leverage. But unfortunately, what one has seen in the past month, during this past month about the Indian diaspora is that they have very limited political leverage on foreign trade issues. They might hold influence in US politics in a different aspect, but I don't think so. They have remained largely silent because trade policy, I think, is shaped by the tougher guys, by the institutions in the US dynamics. I don't think that advocacy groups in the Indian diaspora have very little marginal impact as far as decision making is concerned.
Asha, you want to respond to that or add to that? Smita says the Indian diaspora doesn't really have a say when it comes to trade policy. That's taken by the bigger boys.
Absolutely. So the thing is that what the Indian diaspora needs to be, this is a wake-up call even for the Indian diaspora. What the diaspora needs to do is to make sure that we are following the Israeli model, right? Which is that we are making sure that we are there in the right places at the right time and investing in the right candidates For example, in Lindsey Graham's case, right, in the Senator Lindsey Graham, how is it that we have not supported his candidacy? He's running again in 2026. We should all be there writing a small check. And these are small amounts and this is a very transparent system in the US, thankfully. There should be at least a dozen people that should be there in and buying influence in Washington, D.C., because it's possible to buy influence legally, openly, and transparently. This is what the Indian diaspora should be doing. And we haven't done that, and I think we are paying a price now. Look at the Israelis, right? The Israeli model is, the Jewish model is that the Jewish diaspora will make sure that if any candidate said anything against Israel, it gets punished. Where is our power on that? And I think, thankfully, though, I have a feeling that this is the first time the Indian diaspora is slowly going to wake up. Right now, there is one party there in Washington, D.C. that is playing this game, and that's me. And thankfully, at least the people are watching me right now. But this needs to be at least 200 of us that need to be playing the game in Washington, D.C. No, we have to be doing this.
Interesting that you accept that the Indian diaspora should be doing a lot more. That is a important piece of clarity, because from the outside there is perhaps a kind of a disproportionate sense of what the diaspora can and cannot do. So that's an important point. In fact, Smita is the editor of ANI, and it was the ANI US correspondent today who asked that question to Trump, which has gone so viral. It's become, in many ways, the face of where things are at right now, and represents what many people see as American hypocrisy and duplicity. Here's an America that is importing these sensitive goods like uranium and palladium, and then, lecturing countries like India as far as importing oil is concerned. Here is that comment where ANI's Reena Bharadwaj asked this question to Trump. Just take a look at what he said.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
India says that the U.S. imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers, while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
India says that the U.S. imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers, while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, I've got enough time to just get final comments from everyone, a few seconds each, if you please. Smita, I'll kick it off with you, since that soundbite from Trump was in response to your reporter's question in Washington. Is there a deal in sight? I know it's going to be difficult to get there, but can we agree that a deal is in sight, and all of what we're seeing right now is just a means towards that?
No, I don't think there is. Right now, at least, it's completely fogged out, and I don't see a deal in sight right now. 50% is a huge thing. It's something that should propel us to work towards a deal. So I'm just, again, hope is not a policy incentive, but then, hoping that somewhere better sense prevails on both sides.
Okay, it's all fogged out right now. Professor Latham, what do you think?
I think the interests are too powerful. This is not about hope, and it's not about wishes, and it's not about wish casting or anything like that. It's simply that the interests of these two countries geopolitically and ultimately economically align, and they're too powerful. And what we're going through now is a period of turbulence. When that meeting takes place on the 25th of August, which is before the 21-day deadline, I'll bet you there's a deal that gets done. Not everybody will be perfectly happy with it, but it'll be a deal that everybody can live with, and that will advance India's interests and the United States' interests.
Ambassador Srivatsav, very quickly, do you see any major escalation from this point forward towards a deal that may or may not be ahead?
We should not look for a deal in next 10, 15 days. We have to be prepared and rough it out for a few months. But there is some scope where we can make an adjustment without affecting domestic sector. India was importing Russian crude oil not only for processing and sale in Indian market, but also for making petrochemicals for exports to third countries. Now, why should we invite American Roth for the sake of supplying petrochemicals to European market or US market or African markets? So there's a scope for cutting down our energy imports from Russia, but we must maintain. We cannot allow America to dictate our energy security.
Okay, right now it doesn't look like that's on the table, but fair enough.
But
Ambassador
there's
I quite agree with Ambassador Srivastava. In fact, both of us dealt with Iran when sanctions were there. He was in Tehran and I was in Delhi. We opened escrow accounts and dealt with it. I also dealt with Venezuela, but that was before the sanctions kicked in. So I have a fair idea on how to, and conversations are important.
Yeah.
And that's where I agree with Ms. Motwani, that conversations are important. We must talk, but we cannot threaten. We cannot, from a bully pulpit, order or, take punitive actions, because India's energy security is very important to it.
Yeah.
And I think we've been on record saying we won't compromise. Having said that, a deal is a deal, and I think both sides know the art of making a deal, especially the US side.
Right.
And I'm sure we can reach accommodation. However, the trust deficit, which Vishnu mentioned, I don't know how long that would take to bridge.
Asha, I started with you, I'll end with you. 20 seconds to you.
Okay, so the deal is on the table. It's going to happen. US is going to blink. India needs to make the phone call. Trump is going to melt.
Okay, we'll end it there. Thank you very much, Asha Jadeja Motwani, Smita Prakash, Ambassador Srivastava, Ambassador Sinha, and Professor Latham. This was very enjoyable, very illuminating. I know hope is not an instrumentality when it comes to diplomacy, especially when you're dealing with someone like Trump. And boy, during this broadcast, has he reminded us all that a deal is probably not 15, 20 days away. A lot of hardballing lies ahead for India, and we'll have to see where things actually go. But here on NDTV, we will be tracking it very, very closely and breaking every twist and turn on this. And coming up next, we have a conversation, an exclusive conversation with a man who has seen his country receive the worst side of Trump in the last few weeks. The ambassador of Iran, live and exclusive right here on India Matters.
Hello, Moto.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
That's huge. That is a biggie. It's out.
Gold Plus Clear Glass. Far ho ya near, sab kuch dikhe clear.
Fenesta Windows. Beautiful and durable designs. Installation से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस. आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए.
Fine Finer Fenesta.
जब मुंबई से वापस कोल्हापुर शिफ्ट हुआ तो सबने कहा कि ड्रीम सिटी को छोड़ रहा है. ड्रीम सिटी. तो मैंने कहा ड्रीम में तो यही गलियां आती हैं. तो जब ये रियलाइज़ हुआ कि कुछ बड़ा करने के लिए बड़े शहर में रहने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, तब लगा कि लाइफ में ग्रो किया. कशित आई ऐसे बॉय मिलते मुंबई में, चांस ही नहीं.
SIP करो, इन्वेस्ट करो, लाइफ में ग्रो करो.
प्रतिभूति बाजार में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है. निवेश करने से पहले सभी संबंधित दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें.
The weather was very bad. The situation remains very, very tense. It remains precarious and it remains dangerous. The Dharali village.
मार्ग से वहां पर हेल्प पहुंचा.
Fenesta Windows. Beautiful and durable designs. Installation से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस. आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए.
Fine Finer Fenesta.
My birthday gift to पापा. ये उनके पापा की पहली गाड़ी एक गराज में पड़ी थी दार्जिलिंग में. फिर 3 मैकेनिक, पेंटिंग, पॉलिशिंग। जब इसे फाइनली घर लाया ना, तब लगा लाइफ में ग्रो किया है। बुलाओ।
SIP करो, इन्वेस्ट करो, लाइफ में ग्रो करो।
प्रतिभूति बाजार में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। निवेश करने से पहले सभी संबंधित दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
Rajasthan is history, culture, and much more. And I have been reporting on all things royal for more than 25 years.
And India has hit back very hard at Donald Trump and the United States. The External Affairs Ministry has just put out a statement saying India will protect its national interests. A 3-paragraph statement from the External Affairs Ministry, and I just want to read out that statement to you. It's a statement that's been put out by the External Ministry spokesperson who says, and I quote, and I'm reading out that full statement to you first here on NDTV, the United States has in recent days targeted India's oil imports from Russia. We have already made clear our position on these issues, including the fact that our imports are based on market factors and done with the overall objective of ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people of India. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that the United States should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interest. We reiterate that these actions are unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. Big, hard-hitting counter-strike by India tonight against the Donald Trump administration, just about an hour after it announced the doubling of tariffs from 25% to 50% against India. This comment from the External Affairs Ministry, published just 2 minutes ago from the social media handles of Randir Jaiswal, the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson, is as hard-hitting as it comes. And that final line that you see at the bottom of your screen is really the hard-hitter viewer tonight. India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. This is a warning being issued to Trump. In return, not only will India make no concessions as far as importing Russian oil is concerned, and by no means as a concession to Trump because he has arrogantly demanded it from India, but that India will take actions necessary to protect its national interests. Is India signaling counter consequences for Trump as a result of this very, very arrogant, very belligerent behavior by the US president? There is something called deal making which has its place. People would say this is just Trump indulging in the only way that he knows in how to arrive at a deal. But India feels disrespected. India feels that this move is unfortunate. And India has said that it is therefore extremely unfortunate that the US should choose to impose these additional tariffs when several other countries have been doing the same for many years. So not only has India called out American hypocrisy, India has called out the whimsical nature, the selective outrage of Donald Trump as far as importation of Russian oil is concerned. This is India for the second time in the last 48 hours throwing the ball right back into Trump's court and basically saying, look who's talking. First, we've exposed you and shown how you are the one who also imports Russian equipment, and then who are you to lecture us? Point number two, you say nothing about so many other countries that import Russian oil, even though Trump has just announced that he has asked for information on which countries import Russian oil so he can impose tariffs on them. And I think the coup de grace, the finishing move as far as India is concerned tonight, viewer, is India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. It doesn't get clearer, it doesn't get more aggressive, it doesn't get more firm than that. This is perhaps the hardest language that India has ever used in a diplomatic statement on India-US relations. And we are seeing historic turbulence between India and the United States right now. It's not just about Trump. Ghazali Mohammed, who tracks foreign affairs for us, is live with us. Ghazali, this is going to be another sleepless night for at least two governments. The US government for sure, or at least the India desk at the State Department of the US is not going to be sleeping tonight. Neither are we. This is a big statement coming in from India, hitting right back at Washington, D.C., calling out their hypocrisy and telling them, be prepared for even more consequences. India will protect its national interests.
Yeah, Shiv, and as many clear words, like reiterating the point that we are not the only ones buying or dealing with Russia when it comes to oil. There are many countries who are part of the same group which keeps criticizing India for dealing and engaging with Russia. They themselves are engaging in trade with Russia. India pointed out in its previous statement that how even US is dealing with Russia. And meanwhile, China, being the largest importer of oil from Russia, continues to have trade talks with US. No such words against China. China is one of the largest importer of Russian oil, but Mr. Trump or the US administration has not gone after China. Rather, they are holding trade talks with China. Just last week, they had one session between the Russian foreign minister, he meeting with the US State Department officials. And India has made its point very clear. The one, that we'll always protect our national interest, but it is also going to be very challenging that what could be the next round of a step, because Mr. Trump has also in its executive order had said that somebody, if they will identify more countries who are dealing with Russia and put tariffs on them as well. But it should be well known to the Trade Department as well as the State Department, because there have been many countries and companies which have come under sanctions for dealing with Russia. There have been companies from Iran, there have been companies from China, they have come under sanctions. But those companies or the countries have not got any new sanctions or tariffs by Mr. Trump in its new executive order. It seems like he has singled out India, and people in the know of the things are also hinting that perhaps Mr. Trump is very upset that India has still not given him that kind of credit which he was expecting regarding the ceasefire between India and Pakistan after Operation Sindoor. And it's all coming out in form of weaponizing the tariff against India as far as the recent order is concerned.
You know what? That last line of this statement from the External Affairs Ministry, Ghazali, sounds to me almost like a warning. India will take all steps necessary to protect its national interest, which basically means not only will India not reduce the importation of Russian oil, but it may take some additional steps as well. This is sounding like India putting Trump on notice, saying, look, watch your words. You know, you've taken a pot shot at us. You have doubled the tariff on us, but we are capable of hitting back as well. That's what this means. We will take all necessary steps.
Shiv, it was almost like if you see the previous statement when India had clarified, when External Affairs Ministry had clarified that it is not just us who are purchasing oil from Russia. Even back then, after 2 days after that statement, India was waiting that perhaps Mr. Trump will also reconsider his decision. And he was even asked last night in one of those press briefings that India is accusing you and other countries of dealing with Russia. Why you are not sanctioning them or putting tariffs on them? And he went on to say that I don't know anything about it. So it was expected that perhaps the 24-hour deadline which Mr. Trump had given, he will reassess his own opinion and decisions. But it seems that even he is being very reckless to put those additional 25% tariffs on India. And now the Indian government, External Affairs Ministry, the Commerce Ministry, they are all assessing this executive order and perhaps the next round of steps or what would be the next punitive measure or steps which India can take is being discussed in the corridors of power now.
India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. What a fabulous, sharp line, no ambiguity, no lack of clarity, no fog, no philosophy. This is India basically saying, we will protect our national interests. Nothing comes above our national interests. Is this India calling out Trump's bluff? I will not hazard a guess. That will only be known in maybe the hours and the days ahead. Remember, it's daytime in the United States, but it's going to be a sleepless night for the Indian government as it figures out how to navigate this tariff bombshell. India has drawn a line in the sand and said, we see this as extremely unfortunate. We are going to call out American hypocrisy for the second time on an official basis. This is not source-based. This is for the External Affairs Ministry, and that India will protect all its national interests. Boy, the fallout of this is going to be big. Historic turbulence in India-US relations. How much worse is it going to get before it gets better is really the big suspense question that we will be tracking for sure overnight and here on Primetime on NDTV. Quick break, rolling coverage continues on the other side. Stay with us.
फिनिस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनिस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
फाइनर फिनिस्टा।
जब मुंबई से वापस कोल्हापुर शिफ्ट हुआ तो सबने कहा कि ड्रीम सिटी को छोड़ रहा है। ड्रीम सिटी, तो मैंने कहा ड्रीम में तो यही गलियां आती हैं। तो जब ये रियलाइज़ हुआ कि कुछ बड़ा करने के लिए बड़े शहर में रहने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, तब लगा कि लाइफ में ग्रो किया। कशित आई, ऐसे बॉय मिलते मुंबई में, चांस ही नहीं।
SIP करो, इन्वेस्ट करो, लाइफ में ग्रो करो।
प्रतिभूति बाजार में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। निवेश करने से पहले सभी संबंधित दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ।
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं।
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools and lead with impact. Starts August the 23rd. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
माय बर्थडे गिफ्ट टू पापा, ये उनके पापा की पहली गाड़ी एक गराज में पड़ी थी दार्जिलिंग में। फिर 3 मैकेनिक, पेंटिंग, पॉलिशिंग। जब इसे फाइनली घर लाया ना, तब लगा लाइफ में ग्रो किया है। बुलाओ।
SIP करो, इन्वेस्ट करो, लाइफ में ग्रो करो।
प्रतिभूति बाजार में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। निवेश करने से पहले सभी संबंधित दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
Mohit, you are known for your music. All your films, musics stay with us till today. I'm a millennial and those music are kind of music. So whenever we say Mohit Suri film aa raha hai, we know the music will be good, right? It's a given. So you really work hard. But is this always like how you create your music? You need everything in place, the mood, the lighting, even when the person is in the studio and just singing. And also, how did you select your musicians that this person's voice is perfect for this song?
That's what I think, the amount you give to a song, that's how long it will last, I think. Everyone does the programming, everyone writes the words, everyone makes the thing. But the thing is how much you give, how much of heart you give to the lyrics or to the music or to the melody or to the singing. That's how long the song will last, is what I genuinely feel. If you don't give that love, you're not going to get it back. It's just a simple debit and credit procedure, I think, with the audience. I genuinely feel I don't have any special skill. I don't know any scale or anything else. It's just that I enjoy that process a lot. Give me an evening to just go for a film party or something, I'll skip it. But you give me like a struggling musician to go who has a great tune, some new guys, chill all night with them. I can do that. I can just sit there, make music and stuff like that. We just did that recently. Fahim came down. He just surprised us, and we met in my Bandra office, and Han was there, Aneet was there, and he made me hear his other songs and stuff like that. But it was it's so much fun, because I just think making music.
Good evening, this is The Last Word and I'm Maria Shakil. Tonight, what we are witnessing is not just a tariff hike, it's a punishment dressed up as policy. In a stunning move, Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, has announced a 50% tariff on Indian exports to the United States. And let's be clear, this isn't about trade imbalances or market access. This is retaliation, this is pressure, this is about Russia. Donald Trump has accused India of fueling the Russian war machine, quote unquote. A direct reference to India's decision to continue importing discounted Russian crude despite Western sanctions. And now now the policy choice has been met with what can only be described as an economic punishment. Let's try and unpack what's really happening here. India, like many developing economies, has prioritized energy security over Western geopolitical posturing. It has repeatedly made it clear we will buy oil where it is affordable. That oil has helped keep inflation under control, manage our current account, and insulate Indian economy from global shocks. But now Donald Trump's message is clear: choose the West or pay the price. This is a dangerous precedent. It's not just a challenge to India's economic interests, it's a challenge to our strategic autonomy. Can a sovereign nation then be punished for acting in its own interest, for not towing Washington's line? Let's also not forget that India has been a key partner in the Indo-Pacific, a cornerstone of the Quad, a counterbalance in Asia to China, and yet it is now facing a steep economic penalty for a sovereign energy decision. So who benefits from this? Not the Indian exporter, not the American consumer. But India right now has stood its ground before, like it has done, and with the latest announcement coming in today, will New Delhi respond? Yes, the response has also come in from New Delhi. The Ministry of External Affairs has said, and I quote them, "We have already made our position on these issues clear, including the fact that our imports are based on market factors and done with the overall objective of ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people of India. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that the US should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interests." And the Ministry of External Affairs has gone on to reiterate that these actions, which are essentially increasing of tariff from 25% earlier to 25% being increased today, are unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. And India will take all actions that is necessary to protect its national interests. Some piece of breaking news coming in now. And as expected, politics has started over Donald Trump's tariff. Rahul Gandhi, the leader of opposition, has said Trump is trying to bully us. Weakness cannot override citizens. That is what the leader of opposition, Rahul Gandhi, has said in his latest tweet, which he has just put out, in which he has said that Trump is trying to bully India. We'll try and connect with a reporter in just a bit. Of course, this is coming within minutes of the statement that has been issued by the External Affairs Ministry. Rahul Gandhi here saying Trump's 50% tariff is economic blackmail, an attempt to bully India into an unfair trade deal. PM Modi better not let his weakness override the interests of the Indian people. That's what Rahul Gandhi has said. Of course, the opposition has been asking a number of questions with regards to this. Let's first listen in to what Nick Harper has to say with regards to this tariff bomb which has been dropped by US President.
Well, it was threatened and now it's happened. An additional 25% duty placed on India, all because of buying Russian energy. It now means that one of the United States' major allies and one of its major trading partners will have a total duty of 50% placed on goods that are leaving India and entering here, the United States. Already there was that 25% base rate placed on India. That was set last week by the US president. But Donald Trump had also warned that any country buying Russian energy would face an additional penalty. We've known about that for the last couple of weeks, but those threats against India have increased during the course of this week, and now all of it has come to pass with this announcement from the White House. And all of it follows US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's meetings this Wednesday in Moscow with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, the aim of that meeting was to try and achieve a ceasefire in Russia's war in Ukraine. The US president had given Vladimir Putin a deadline of this Friday to achieve a ceasefire. No ceasefire for Russia would have mean Donald Trump imposing a 100% tariff on Russia. But he'd also warned that there would be secondary tariffs or penalties put in place against any country that was buying Russian energy. And remember, India buys both Russian energy and military equipment, both of which have angered Donald Trump. He has said that he has now received, in theory from Steve Witkoff, what he calls additional information. That information being that the government of India is currently directly or indirectly importing Russian Federation oil. Donald Trump says that this additional 25% penalty will come into effect 21 days after the date of this order that has just been published, so 3 weeks from now. Of course, all of this calls into question the nature of the US-India relationship, not just when it comes to trade. The two countries are considered strong allies. They have security partnerships, including the Quad grouping with Japan and Australia, all of that aimed at trying to push back against China's dominance. And remember, Prime Minister Modi was here in Washington just a few months ago, back in February, one of the first leaders to visit the White House when Donald Trump returned to the Oval Office. These latest actions, though, from the US president make it unclear when another sit-down meeting may happen between the two leaders, these tariffs really becoming a barrier to close relations anytime soon. Nick Harper, NDTV, Washington.
Let me bring in the guests who are joining us now. Richard Rosso is Senior Advisor and Chair on India and Emerging Asia Economics at CSIS. Daniel Block is joining me from Washington, D.C. He's Senior Editor Foreign Affairs and a contributing editor at the Washington Monthly. Ambassador Shashank is joining us. He's a former Foreign Secretary. We have David K. Johnson, who is journalist and author. Richard Rosso, how will this 50% tariff affect key Indian export sectors like pharma, the textiles and the gems, and are we staring at a potential job loss crisis?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for India's sake, India is largely a services-driven economy for economic growth and agriculture for employment. So it's always good to remember this is kind of the smallest of the three buckets when you think about where the economy is at, where jobs are at. But the United States is a very meaningful partner as India hopes to start landing some of that global manufacturing that might be shifting away from China. The United States is India's largest export market by far for goods exports. So it's going to have a very real direct impact in the sector that the Modi government wants to see grow. So this is quite real, but we've got a few weeks to try to get this deal across the finish line. We got at least one more round of negotiations within that window. Hopefully they make some progress, but the Russia is a bit of a surprise, I think, in how aggressively the president's pursued that the last couple of days.
What really explains this kind of agitation which is being displayed by President Trump here, John? India, in its response, has been very measured. The response is coming in from the Minister of External Affairs. And today, again, after this increase in tariff to 50%, we are seeing India say that we are doing it in the national interest, just as many countries have done so. Why is Donald Trump so agitated, particularly with India? John? All right. That's a question to David K. Johnston. Apologies.
Thank you. Well, first of all, understand that under the American Constitution, Donald Trump can't impose tariffs. Congress can impose tariffs. There's a very small, limited exception. So all of this is based on Donald's claim of a power he doesn't have and which is being litigated. Secondly, Donald doesn't know anything. And what you're seeing here, as I've been reporting on him for almost 40 years, is that he has no knowledge of the world. He doesn't understand things. And he is flailing around trying to figure out what to do because he's made promises and threats, none of which he's been able to carry out. So frankly, I wouldn't be particularly worried about this because Donald Trump doesn't have authority to impose tariffs. The American Constitution is very clear about that. That is a power only held by Congress.
Okay, so if Donald Trump doesn't have the power, then what exactly is he indulging in with these constant tweets? Is it bluster?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. This is his whole career as a con artist, as a quote-unquote businessman who lost money left and right. Donald Trump's whole career has been based on bullying people, having some leverage over people for various reasons, all of which I've documented in my best-selling books. And Donald believes that he is all-powerful. He has said, I have an Article 2, that's the presidential section of the American economy, of the American Constitution. I have an Article 2 that says I can do anything I want. It doesn't say anything close to that, but Donald believes he has dictatorial powers. And I'm shocked that everybody is acting as if he does.
Okay. And that brings me to the question that was asked today, Daniel, to Donald Trump with regards to US imports from Russia. He says, I don't know anything about it. He certainly doesn't know what is the nature of import coming in, or is it his way of avoiding a question which has been repeatedly asked by India, that you yourself import uranium, fertilizers from Russia?
So I'd say with Donald Trump, you can never rule out the possibility that he doesn't know something that he should know the answer to. We've seen that again and again with this president. If I had to bet, though, I would guess it's what you said, that he's trying to avoid a question that he does know the answer to and doesn't want to answer. He does that all the time when he's asked about uncomfortable or difficult subjects. And this makes him, like many politicians, often when they're asked a question they don't want to respond to, they'll say, oh, I don't know, or I haven't heard anything about that. But he takes it really to a new extreme in that he simply won't respond to difficult questions. And it's one that, in some ways, I would expect the president to have an answer to in this case. But again, it's Trump, so no surprises there that he's not handling that question in a way that you would expect the U.S. president to.
Okay, then Ambassador Shashank, just minutes ago, the response came in from the External Affairs Ministry. Of course, as I said, there is a great degree of, caution here. India saying that these actions are unfair, unreasonable, and unjustified. India has long defended its oil imports from Russia on economic grounds. Is that narrative now no longer acceptable to Washington, D.C. and the Trump administration?
Well, it seems that the United States wants India to stop buying oil from Russia and perhaps start buying oil from United States or from the Western countries or from other suppliers. India is going for the oil which is available, which is under the international sanctions regimes, and Russia has also been working on that basis. So therefore, I feel that so far India has not violated any of the sanctions, etc., which have been imposed by the West, even though one can say that, well, these are not imposed by the United Nations, but by the individual set of countries. Secondly, India has tried again and again to talk to Russia and to Ukraine how to bring about an end to their conflict. So it's not that India has not tried that. So it is both linked. That is, buying oil for its 1.4 billion people. Secondly, trying to bring an end to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And thirdly, in order to keep the oil markets stable in the world, India has also been supplying the processed oil products to European Union and others, those who are interested. But anyway, if they are not interested now and President Trump feels that India is making money out of it, and I do not know how the Indians are passing on that money to the Russians, because that is, they are saying they are funding the Russian war with Ukraine. So I don't understand that. But then India will have to find other markets, whether within India or elsewhere. So I think this will go on because Russia is supplying the oil at the prices which are reasonable for them, and perhaps there will be pressure from the Indian exporters to somehow get support from the Indian government so that they don't lose out the whole market because of 50% tariffs in the US. So it's likely that Indians might also talk to the Russians that to make some concessions on the oil prices so that part of the subsidies or part of the concessions can be extended to the Indian exporters, those who are hit very hard. But India will also have to look for alternative markets. I have no doubt about it. Our exporters will have to look for that. And President Trump is making it much easier in a way, which is not good because we have tried for last 20 years to improve our relations, to set up a strategic partnership with the United States. But somehow, recently, in the last 1 month or so, after Pakistan was able to get into the good books of the United States, apparently they have become informal advisors to President Trump how to deal with India. And I think that is what is happening. And India, of course, I mean, we are talking to the other suppliers, other people with whom we can have supply chain relationships. So the East Asian countries, Northeast Asian countries, maybe even China, Russia, Africa, and elsewhere. So we'll have to see how best we can take care of them. But we must continue our dialogue with the Americans because as we find that other colleagues are saying, that we have to find a proper bilateral trade arrangement which is acceptable to both sides and which is also according to the Indian Constitution and the American Constitution.
Okay. David, since you pointed out that very interesting aspect that the US president has no powers, it's the Congress which has the powers in the case of trade deals, then what really happens to the talks that are ongoing?
Well, a lot of companies are, in fact, the importing countries, paying these tariffs, but then they're filing to get the money back. And the smartest move for the Indian government, and I'm sure it will do this, Maria, is to go and litigate this, to go and say, you don't have any authority to do this. And in relation to the what's motivating this by Trump, let's remember that India has been a big beneficiary of Russia having to sell oil to India at about 20% below the world price because of sanctions. Trump is trying to figure out what to do in Ukraine, and India is now being drawn into this. Remember, Trump promised that in one day he would end the war in Ukraine, and it's been 9 months since the election, and he's gotten nowhere because he has no idea what he's doing.
Then, Richard Rosso, how should India balance its strategic autonomy with maintaining a stable partnership with the US? Or do you think that question doesn't arise anymore given how Donald Trump's stand has been? He has only taken a maximalist position now.
Well, look, I think we still luckily have a pretty good reservoir of goodwill. Times like this that the United States could have taken a different course in engagement with India, are very different approaches after Russia invaded Ukraine and basically giving India a pass at that time. The murder for hire came out and the United States didn't make an astonishingly big deal about it or anything. So we have a reservoir of goodwill. I think we can survive this, but I think for India, it's going to be kind of a dual track approach, right? Try to get this deal done because the United States is too important of an economic partner for India's exporters to let this die, but also realizing India's got political bright lines and agriculture market access that the President of the United States does not understand. So hopefully getting the deal done, but at the second track, as India's been doing very successfully in recent years, is building stronger economic ties with other very important partners. India's been signing robust trade agreements. The recent visit of the head of the Philippines, initiated a whole number of important announcements. So try to get as much as they can out of the U.S. relationship because it's too important, but also I think further deepening ties with other critical partners. It's a good dual track approach and one that I think is pretty pragmatic.
What about the Russian energy strategy? Do you think that this will push India to rethink that Russian energy strategy or double down on it as a matter of principle and economic compulsion?
Yeah, we've seen U.S. pressure on India on oil purchases and Iran and Venezuela yield, I think, the kind of outcomes we wanted. The question is this really a policy proclamation by the president or is it a negotiating plug for a couple of narrow objectives we have on the trade agreement, or for the U.S. to swap out our own hydrocarbons. I think you look back 4 or 5 months ago, and the president's view was Ukraine started the conflict. So I think for India to dodge every single time the administration policy and how we look at the conflict changes, if suddenly Russia opens up and is looking at an agreement with Ukraine, a ceasefire of something, it could change again dramatically. So careful not to jump at the short-term things, because I don't know yet that we consider this to be President Trump's core policy.
Okay, so let me bring in Daniel now. Daniel, a thought on, should India adopt the strategy that it has done so far, waiting and watching, and at the same time very patiently reiterating that this is unreasonable? Or should India also hit back with some kind of counter tariffs?
I'm not sure how much it matters one way or the other. And I say that because we've seen other countries attempt both when it comes to dealing with Trump and tariffs. We've seen countries hit back and try and be aggressive and strike a deal. And we've seen countries that kind of sit back patiently and don't do anything and don't retaliate. And, I'd say on balance, I think the countries that have not hit back have probably wound up getting better deals than the ones that have struck back aggressively. But again, neither is a sure way to save yourself from Trump's tariffs. We're talking about a president who, to some extent just really loves tariffs. He once said that it's his favorite word in the dictionary. He has a kind of fetishization of tariffs. So I'm not sure that there's a clear playbook or right way for India to handle this if its goal is to get the tariffs off. Like I said, I think on balance, states that have not struck back have been more successful at striking trade deals with Trump. But there's no guaranteed way to succeed when it comes to getting tariffs off your country if you're negotiating with Donald Trump.
Okay, David, because you'll be exiting the show any moment now, so let me ask you the last question. Has India's foreign policy, particularly in energy diplomacy, made it vulnerable to global backlash?
Well, India's economy is growing, driven by several things. I mean, it's growing quickly in the pharmaceutical industry, where there's a huge future, not only now, but with what's coming with new research in manufacturing biosimilars and other advances. And it's benefited greatly from this deeply discounted Russian oil that's helped build its economy. If you're going to be a world power, and India wants to go back to 500 years ago when it, along with China, were the richest countries in the world, yes, it's going to be vulnerable. And the advantage India has is a highly educated group of diplomats and trade negotiators who know what they're doing, with a prime minister, whether you like or dislike his policies, who's an educated, thoughtful person against someone who doesn't literally know anything, Donald Trump, and who has a mercantilist view of the world. He wants to go back to the economy of when the British East India Company ruled India. That's his whole view of the world. If you have $1 or a piece of gold and I don't have it, the only way to get it is to attack you in some way, not to grow the economy, because Donald doesn't know anything about economics despite a degree in that field.
Ambassador Shashank, India so far had maintained that strategic balance between US and Russia. Would you say that in the new world order and a president in Donald Trump in charge of the White House, India will be forced to choose between the two countries?
I think it's too early to come to that conclusion. India has been working with both Republican and Democratic administrations to improve strategic relationships, technical tie-ups in critical energies, critical technologies, new areas, and we have been moving ahead on that. Only thing is that, yes, perhaps not as fast. What President Trump is trying to do is to bring India directly into the American area of influence. So it would like India to become like Japan or Australia or something like this, so that they must listen to what the Americans would say. But I think, we have come very far from where we were at the non-aligned movement, strategic autonomy, when Americans were saying that we were closer to the Russians, buying almost 80-90% of our armaments, defense equipment from the Russians. it is coming down, and they have been showing a lot of understanding that it is a legacy kind of issue which has to continue, and then gradually America and Indian partnership can become of extreme importance for both of them. It can be a defining partnership for this century, as some of the experts have been saying from the American side. But I think President Trump has priority for setting the balance of trade right for the Americans. And he feels that the only way to do it is by raising the tariffs. So we have to ride out this storm and then see how best we can create a better relationship so that it is rewarding for both sides. India does not want a one-way relationship in order to get somehow concessions from the American side and not give it back to them. It must be a mutually beneficial relationship. So I think we'll have to continue working on that so that it is seen in good faith. We are working together, but at the same time, we would like it to be a peaceful world. Russia has been an old trusted friend. We don't want Russia to go under the, let's say, the overriding power of the Chinese, who have been able to now become one of the most important countries in the world. And they openly declared that in the next 20 years or so, they will become #1 scientific, technical, and military power in the world. So I think Americans have come to realize perhaps that that will be a bit too late for them. So they must move very quickly to see how best they can get Russia to obey their commands, India to obey their commands. So I don't know whether it's going to take place that way or not, because India so far we were growing at 2 or 3% every year.